Welcome to the Monitoring the Power Platform Bootcamp, the 2021-2022 edition. In this session, we will cover managing Azure outages. The agenda for this session is to cover the objectives and introduction, Azure status, Azure resources, Microsoft 365 resources, manually reviewing service health, looking at Azure Monitor and implementing a monitoring strategy, how to build Azure Monitor Alerts, and a demo of building Azure Monitor Alerts. The objectives are how to understand to manually check Azure status, learn how to alert on service health, and overall adopting a monitoring strategy. My name is Ali Yousefi. I am a senior customer engineer with Microsoft. My certifications include Azure Solution Architect, Dynamics 365 Power Platform, as well as Azure DevOps Engineer Experts. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer. Microsoft Services offers a monitoring workshop that will allow you to work with Microsoft engineers to help implement a monitoring strategy for Power Platform and Microsoft Dataverse. Note, this title may change in the future, but please contact your Microsoft representative for any additional information if you're interested in pursuing this workshop. In this section, we'll cover how to manually check Azure status and resources. Keeping your head in the clouds. Cloud data centers are very similar to traditional data centers in that they host your business critical applications, workloads, infrastructure. Concerns still apply between the two different types of data centers. For instance, keeping things up during disasters, defining a BCDR strategy, security and ops management, making sure we have proper communication, clear, understandable processes between operations and security teams, bare metal updates, software patching, making sure that we have the latest security patches applied to our infrastructure and we're updating with little downtime. The cloud offers us, as you know, so much more that we can have the zero downtime patching, the latest hardware, software, the regional and global availability, so we can have redundancy not only across certain geos, but even across different geos within the world. So if I'm working in North America, I can also have redundancy in EMEA and APAC as well. That said, stuff does happen. Let's prepare for the unexpected. So let's take a look into some areas we can go to for answers. As this is a monitoring the Power Platform session, we'll cover Azure status, Azure Resource Health, and Microsoft 365. So Azure status will help us with looking at overall the Azure data centers that our software as a service is running on, the front door such as Azure AD and so forth, Azure Resource Health. So if we're extending out to the cloud using services such as Azure Function, Azure Service Bus, Event Hubbing, Storage Accounts, we can look at those particular resources as they are in our control, as well as Microsoft 365. So go to where the auditing and activity logging is for not only Dataverse, but SharePoint and other Microsoft 365 services. So where to go for answers? Start off Azure status homepage. Always good to go to that page. If you're not familiar with that, I will show you that after this slide. It has an RSS feed that you can subscribe to get notifications in your inbox. The Microsoft 365 service health status as well. You can go as a admin, you can go into the portal, look at the service health for each one of your services, including Dynamics or Dataverse, SharePoint, Teams, etc. Twitter, Microsoft offers an Azure status Twitter account, as well as I believe an Azure support account as well, and then other social platforms to find any updates that you're seeing from the field. Or alternatively, instead of necessarily manually, we can go look at actively monitoring and alerting, which is our next section. Okay, what I have pulled up here is the Azure status page that can be found at status.azure.com. You can see that it shows you when it was last updated, and you can go to the different data centers here: Americas, Europe, Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa, Azure Government, Azure China, and Geo. We have the RSS feed, so this is one I would highly recommend clicking on to register within your Outlook or your email of choice and get that information sent to you. But you can scroll through here and sort of see overall the health of almost every service. For us, we would look at things like Azure AD and then Service Bus and Functions, make sure those things are running. You can also, down at the bottom, also see the DevOps status by geography. You can click on this and see how the pipelines, the repo services, these kinds of things are actually be working for you here. So here's the Azure DevOps status. We have a service maintenance in effect. You can see the status history by clicking on this, as well as the RSS feed as well. We have the repos. Looks like they have some sort of advisory going on here. Unable to generate get credentials to clone repo. You see different statuses: healthy, degraded, unhealthy, and advisory. In this section, we'll look at how to monitor with Azure, including building an alerting strategy and building Azure Alerts. So building an alerting strategy, most organizations hopefully have some sort of alerting strategy where Microsoft Power Platform can fit right in. If that's the case, then Microsoft Power Platform already offers out of the box many ways to start sending data points to Azure, including log analytics or application insights. So if you look at session 2, we covered how to set up the export for Dataverse. For session 3, we looked at covering it for Power Apps, Canvas apps. For other workloads, we can look at those individually and see how we can bring those in, sort of those siloed services into a single log store that we can start building our alerting and monitoring strategy off of. For workloads that may extend on-premise and sort of a hybrid area, we can look at building in agents into the machines and servers to deliver those same sort of data points into log analytics, where we can sort of consolidate all of this into the cloud there. So I would recommend looking at a cloud monitoring guide such as the Cloud Adoption Framework and see sort of the guidance there if you're going to go from a hybrid. If you're looking at sort of lift and shift from on-premise to cloud, there's a lot of good information there. But the first thing we're going to look for building our strategy is, does it matter? So understanding what Power Platform is delivering to us and what we can do to make sense of it. Is this a real problem? Or is this sort of noise that we're seeing, right? Because the platform will deliver lots and lots of data points, and we need to find the signal within the noise. So how is this data point that's being sent to me, how is this actually truly influencing the overall health, the user experience of my application? Next, we say, is it urgent? So, is this issue real? Does it need urgent attention? When I see CRM security exceptions within the exceptions table in Application Insights, how does that really impact me? Is this something where maybe a service account is missing an exception, and at this, a privilege, and maybe that privilege is one that the service account's not even using. So maybe it's something that's not as severe as a user who may not have the security roles at all to be able to even get their job done, for instance, right? That could be a severe issue. And hopefully, if we're tracking that, we can set up a proactive approach where, that we see those alerts coming in, or those data points coming in, we build an alert to automate some of that, that's what we'll show in the demo later, how to automate sort of providing security roles and sort of trying to rectify some of the issues we're seeing. As we mentioned, users are our customers or users affected, right? So is this issue providing a potential bad experience for your users? Well, one thing you can do is you can set up alerts to send email communications to DLs, which may be your user group, for instance. You can let them know, hey, we're having a service disruption or service maintenance is going on. So looking at building alerts as well to send communications out to your end users as something that you could build as part of your strategy. Finally, are other dependent systems affected? So as we know, with cloud, with the one cloud approach, we have multiple services, even outside of the Power Platform, that we leverage: Azure Functions, API management, service buses, things like that. How are they interrelated? Is there any sort of correlating identifiers that we can use to bring these across? We have different teams who may be working support for different areas of our overall platform. So if we have Power Platform support teams versus, say, maybe Azure Info support teams, how can we bring them together so that there's no gaps in the say the logs they're using and the knowledge that's being collected as part of remediation? So finally, I do want to call out some of the resources that we have online regarding the Cloud Adoption Framework. I'll be dropping links for that in the description or comments below. But this cube here represents a sort of a three-prong approach on looking at how we can sort of try to simplify what we're looking for, right? Do we want to monitor in depth versus in breadth? How do we monitor across the entire health model? So yeah, understanding, do I want to see everything, or do I want to dig into something very specific and look at, say, for instance, the end-to-end transaction for it? So just make sure we're establishing observability is a big key here. Again, for any of this information specific to the Azure cloud, especially if you're moving as a hybrid from on-prem to online, or have both in both on-prem and in the cloud, look at the Cloud Adoption Framework. It's got some very great information that you can leverage there. And Power Platform, a lot of the same concerns will still apply. In fact, there's a section in it for platform as a service. While maybe not specific to Power Platform, there's, I think, some useful guidance there that we can leverage. All right, so let's look at log analytics here, right? So one of the things the reason I liked this image was that it sort of shows how all of our Azure resources we have available to us, our virtual machines, application insights, all of these here can funnel into this sort of logs data store that you see here. So if I have virtual machines that are running my Power Automate desktop, I have virtual machines that are running my on-premise whatever services I have, I can funnel data points to log analytics. My Azure resources, so my Azure AD sign-in logs, audit logs can be funneled into log analytics. Application insights, obviously we have that for Dataverse, Canvas apps, and so forth. We can funnel that as well. What's neat about this is that there is a data collector API. So when we start looking at Power Automate, for instance, there's an option to send Power Automate logs even to log analytics. Once it's in log analytics, now we go to the right side of this image where we can see the different types of things we can do with it, right? So we can design and test queries. We can build Kusto queries to analyze the data, build the workbooks and so forth here. Workbooks can help us visualize. Dashboards can help us visualize, as well as Power BI, as we see export for visualization for other services. We can have automation applied, so we can kick off logic apps. We can kick off PowerShell runbooks, for instance. We can even push to other services such as ServiceNow, PagerDuty, etc. We even have a REST API, so if you want to be able to search within here, you can use an API and search the data using whatever framework you want. Finally, and what's specific to this session will be the alerts piece, so we can automatically respond to critical conditions, set up alerts, again, that can help us communicate to our larger audience, as well as kick off some of these automations for logic apps and so forth. So let's take a look at that. So here you'll see the anatomy of an alert. We have a target resource. Our target resource can be really anything within the cloud. In our case, for Power Platform, we'll primarily focus on application insights, but you can monitor other resources as well. So you have your target resource that you'll be monitoring. You'll set a criteria. So what am I looking for? And we want to see, if we meet that criteria or not. If so, then we have an action group. What is the action we're going to perform? Are we going to send out the comm? Are we going to take an automated approach and try to rectify that? As well as what's the condition of the alert? Is it turned on? Is it turned off? Is it disabled? That kind of thing. So for alerts, creating an alert rule, first thing we do is define the condition, which is, again, the resource that we'll be monitoring, as well as the criteria. So we'll define the criterion here. Overall, as create a rule, this is what you'll see within Azure. You'll see you can define the alert condition, define the details, and define the group. And as we look to define the first piece of it, which is our resource and condition, we could see for this case, this is a log type alert. So it allows us to review the log, send in a custom query. In this case, we're looking at custom events. But this is what's called the Kusto query language. You see, this is the query to be executed, and there'll be a time window. You can define the time window above the search query, or you can define it within your query yourself. And then you have what's called the alert logic. So how many results we're going to look for. In this case, we're looking for number of results. There's also aggregation that can be done. But in this case, number of results greater than 0, different thresholds, right? So depending on what you're looking for and what severity of your alert will be, you may want to set this to be greater than or equal or less than, something like that, or an aggregation. So maybe you're looking at trends with user experience. You could set that up. So in this slide, you see the defining alert details section. So we give an alert rule a name. the description of it and the severity level. So severity levels range from 0 to 4, 4 being the lowest, being a verbose, 3 being informational, 2 warning, 1 is an error, and 0 is critical. And these can help define, to your support team, what severity we want to have for this, right? Finally, you see suppress alerts, and then you see these how long to suppress alerts within minutes. So suppressing alerts help us, sort of keep alerts from happening that may be false positives or false notifications. So for instance, if you're performing any sort of planned maintenance, if you know that you're maybe having a deployment going on and you know that you're going to start seeing API requests, they're going to take much longer than normal, you can click on suppressing alerts. All of this can also be configured and updated through the Azure CLI or PowerShell. So for more information on that, look for the Azure, I think it's called az.monitor, az.alert management commandlets. I'll drop in the module link within the description below. All right, what you see here is the action group. So you can give it a name, give it a short name. This has to be very, very short, so you might use some acronyms there. What subscription or resource groups it's going to be a part of. Then you have your different actions that you have available to you. You have email, SMS, push, and voice. This can be your comms out to your DLs or support teams or broader audience. And then you have automation options, Azure Functions, Logic Apps, webhooks, which can help extend out to, say, Power Automate, for instance. ITSM, so going to ServiceNow, PagerDuty, that kind of thing, as well as automation runbooks. So run Azure Automation, run commandlets to maybe turn on, apply security roles and so forth. If you already have some PowerShell scripts that you run, this can be useful to host these in Azure Automation and then be able to kick those off there. All right, so creating emails and so forth, right? So you can click on email if you want to send in a DL. You can obviously the resource manager role. You can choose whatever role you have. Remember, you can have custom roles here. So if you want to have a role for a team, you can also do that. SMS, you can send a text message. You can do push notification. You can even have a phone call from Azure, depending on the severity level. So here's an example of an alert rule. In this case, we can see the rule ID, the resource ID. This is the email you'll get. And if you want to find out more, you can click here to go into the Azure portal. So for alerting outside of Azure, right, if you want to sort of look at the Azure status or anything like that, one thing I've done is use if then that or Zapier to monitor the RSS feed or the is Azure down page. This one is hosted outside of Azure on another cloud. So if something catastrophic happened where you wouldn't be able to even get any notifications, there might be an option here to review that. So look into setting this up. In this case, this one is triggered on an update to the RSS feed to send an email, or you can take additional action, send it to even email that's outside of Microsoft. All right, so let's take a look at building alerts. We're going to cover Azure Service Health alerts as well as specific alerts for application insights. Okay, so I am in the Azure portal. I clicked on the hamburger in the top left and was able to see the different resources. In this case, we'll click on Azure Monitor, go to the Azure Monitor overview here. You can see there's the monthly Azure Monitor AMA. Highly recommend looking into that. In our case, we're going to stick with this sort of area at the top left. We have alerts, we have service health, and other things like logs. Let's look at service health first. Service health lets us currently look at the service issues we have. So we think about the Azure status that we looked at. Any planned maintenance, any health advisories or security advisories will all pull up here. And any health alerts we may have configured, we have those here. So you can see if you've had any previous alerts set up. On another session, I'll show how to monitor your alerts to make sure they're up and running, and if there's any issues to do that. But you can see I have different service health alerts here. So show me any service issue in the US data center. So these are ones I've set in the past. Let's go ahead and set up a new one. So we click on Add Service Health Alert. Click on what services we want, what region. Let's take a look at the regions. We have different regions we can look at. We may want to focus on particular areas. So maybe we want to say West and East US if we're looking at Power Platform in the North America. So we can go to the East and West US, for instance. Click on different types. So we want to find service issue, planned maintenance, health advisories. So maybe we want to do just service issues. And we have that. We can add an action group. And here's where we could set action groups. We'll do a new action group here. And we'll just add it to something. We'll create a new one for this. We'll just call it Monitoring Bootcamp 2. And we'll just call it email notification. Here's our different options here. So email, SMS, you can choose this, and you can choose your support email at test.com, something like that. And you have SMS, voice, and so on here to choose what you'd like to do. And you click OK, give it a name, email support. And you can have multiple different notification types if you want to have multiple different deals depending on severity. Action types, here's your automation here. So you could choose Azure function, so forth. For this case, we're just going to do an email. You could tag it up, and simply click create, and then you'll be done. You'll now have a service health alert that will monitor East and West USs. This will be for all services. You can pin it down to specific ones for service bus or functions, what have you. Point those to the specific support teams you want. So that's for creating a service health rule. If I want to create a, let's say a alert, I can start here, click on alerts. I can see any alerts that are happening right now. Right now I have no alerts, that's good. I can manage alert rules, see the ones I already have up, see which ones are enabled by and disabled. Look at these different filters I have. The different severities I see, so for anything from 4 down to critical as well. What's the condition, what's my target resource, and so forth. So here's all the ones I have. I can click on one and go into it and see what's been configured. So in this case, I'm looking at an Azure function. I have a piece here to go monitor Dataverse to tell me about the availability test. That particular service or function is available. The source code is available, and it will essentially ping your Dataverse environment and respond back. And if it doesn't respond back or responds in a longer time than expected, it will actually go and email you and let you know something's going on. So that's one that we already have available. If you want to look at alerts you may have, or even creating new alerts, let's go look at application insights and how we can change our alerts or create new ones. So we'll go to App Insights. We'll go choose a telemetry we have here, and go into our logs. Let's close some of this stuff up. In our case, we're actually going to click on this community Git repo. We'll click on that. That will take us to a GitHub repo that has different logs we can, queries we can take. So we'll go to Azure Services. In our case, we're going to go look at Dataverse. We'll go to Queries. Choose page performance. Let's just choose top 10 slowest pages last 30 days. We'll take this query, go back, close out this window, and we can run our page views and see what the longest ones were. In our case, it's simply this one, or the last 30 days. So you could have a query. The point of this one is to show the alert rule. So you'll build your query, you'll click on New Alert Rule. It'll take you back to the Create an Alert Rule page here. And this is where we can show the scope, the conditions, and so forth. So here's the measurement, the aggregation type, and we could say split by dimensions if we want to do that. And then our thresholds as well. So greater than, we could say that our average needs to be greater than, I don't know, 5 seconds, something like that. And it'll tell you like how much it'll cost. This is going to be a this is a log alert. You can also have metric alerts, but if you're running it from App Insights, it'll be a log alert. So there's your search query. It didn't go over, did it? Yeah, there it is right there. So that's good. So we have everything set up, and we will go to next actions. We can add an action group versus create. We've already done one, right? So we do this bootcamp demo thing here, do details, and we'll name it page views over 5 seconds, something like that. And you can automatically resolve alerts. Check workspace link storage as well if you want to do that. And you can even be able to mute actions. And then hit review and create. So there you have it. There's an example of an alert. Let me see if I can find this quickly, an alert email of just a sample that I've done in the past here. Let's see. Here's an example of a Azure Monitor looking at failing flows. So in this case, we're looking for Power Automate flows that have failed. So I'll get an email. Sev1, what's my alert name? Monitor failing flows in email. It was fire, and one of them is to email me, and you can see when it was, the alert ID, alert rule, filtered search results, and search results. So you can see it shows the metric value, how many requests where ID contains CU and sex is false. So if I click on the filter search results, it should take me to my Azure resource here and be able to look at the data points. And if everything works, it should actually paint the query within the box and run it. Let's see. And we can see I have my Power Automate ones here. This one was failing, and go investigate what's going on here. Okay, in this session, we've covered how to set up alerts within Azure Monitor, talked about creating an Azure Monitor strategy, as well as looked at how to look at Azure Status, Azure Service Health, and Microsoft 365 Service Health. Remember, sessions 2 and 3 can help us configure data points being delivered to Application Insights. And sessions after this, we'll look deeper into building workbooks and other things that we can do with some of the data points that are being delivered, not just alerts. Hope it's been helpful. If it has, please send me a like, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Send me any questions you may have to the information you see below. There's my email address as well as my LinkedIn. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.